Electric cars, trucks, SUVs, are you listening, man? Let Eastern Motors put you in a car today. Let Eastern Motors finance it all the way.
Welcome to the Crosse Commission Saturday Night Power Hour. On this Easter weekend, we got Safe and I have family obligations, so we're going to try and do as much as we can on this. Jake is also with us too. We hope you enjoyed last night's live watch of Hopkins, Maryland, and Navy Loyola. And today we learned a very, very important lesson today that Cornell's the only very good team in the country.
Maryland too, right?
You want to repeat that?
Maryland on its best day is very good. Need a little bit more consistency. I'd put them slightly below Maryland, but Maryland slightly below Cornell. But I think we saw it today with Cornell-Harvard. That was a whooping.
Yeah, I'm gonna push back on that one a little bit, considering Maryland's beaten the number 2 team in the country and the number here. I mean, I'll go by RPI. They've beaten.
I'm just basing it off of what we saw last night.
RPI. I'm basing it off the entire season. Maryland's beaten number 1, number 4, number 5, number 8, and number 9. 8 of Maryland's 10 wins are against top 20 teams.
It's not bad.
It's pretty good. I mean, maybe not very good, but I think it's. Yeah. I say
good. That's a lot better than a lot of the rest of the nation. So it's not a bad spot to be at all heading into May.
It's a lot better than Cornell too.
But yeah, day where we were trying to get some clarity, and as always, it just muddles up a bit, especially with ACC play, wild comebacks all across the board in the ACC and Big Ten.
Is Ryan trying to claim
Ohio State?
Is Ryan trying to claim Cornell's the only good team, a psyop to cover for the fact that Syracuse can't play outdoors?
And upstate New York, the best team upstate New York.
Okay. I know that's the whole narrative and everything, but I'm going to get into my rant when we get to the point. I think it's more than the outdoor-indoor stuff. It's preparation. That's the big issue. They've played outdoor games. They've scheduled non-con outdoor games. One of their home games became a neutral site outdoor game. That's not the issue. It's that this freaking coaching staff can't get this team off the bus when they're on the road.
I got him safe. I got him.
That's a trigger. That's a workaholics. What are they?
Boom. I proved it.
They went all the way out to Salt Lake City in non-con, so that's not the issue. They can't get out. They're not out of New York State or whatever parameters.
There's something about the state of North Carolina. We did some deep dive research on the midweek pod where there's literally like 2 games Cuse has ever won against Duke in Carolina in the entire history. One was like 1938 and the other was 2018 with a 15-14 game.
For the war.
Yeah, it's like 1930. It's literally like before we even entered in World War II. That's one of the 2 times Syracuse has ever beaten Duke at Duke.
I don't think the question is whether they play outdoor games. It's are they good at them? And they're 1-3 this year, and I think they're. I mean, I have the numbers. Syracuse is 7-9 the last 3 seasons in road and neutral games. They are 21-7 in the Dome. That's a pretty stark drop off. And they are, if you compare it to other teams, every other ACC team in the last 4 years, including North Carolina, has a winning record away in road and neutral games.
Does that count the tournament? Because I remember that Georgetown game. Or is that outside of the 3-year span?
Yeah, I just went the last 3 years. Okay. 23 to 25. Because 2022, they weren't very good. They won 4 games. So But in the last 3 years, Notre Dame is 20-3 road neutral. Here we go. Let's just, you know what? We'll get into this one. Or no, not Cornell-Harvard. Duke Syracuse. 1 hour on the clock.
Yeah.
So
you have the clock this week?
Yeah, I got it. Notre Dame is 20-3 the last 3 seasons in road and neutral games. They're also 17-3 at home. Notre Dame wins a lot. Duke is 14-9 road games, neutral games, 23-4 at home. Duke is very good at home the last couple of years. UVA is actually kind of the one most similar to Cuse. They're 19-7 at Klockner, and they're 12-10 away from it. And Carolina is pretty much identical: 10-7 road and neutral, 13-10 at home. But Cuse has among these 4 teams UVA is 73% at Klockner. Cuse is 75% of the dome. So Cuse has got the 3rd best home winning percentage among these 4 teams, but their road winning percentage is significantly the worst. They're 43% outside of the dome. The second worst mark would be Virginia, which is 54%. So, I mean, look, I think they should schedule more games outside of the dome, because I think the only way you get better at something is by doing it more often. But I think whether or not they play the number of games is, and I'm not even. At a certain point, you do kind of have they just don't look. I mean, compare the team that we saw
against Notre Dame.
The opponent, they play better opposition on the road. That's true.
That's part of it. You know,
they stack
Maryland
up.
and Cornell,
But they played Notre Dame at home, and and this gets to a point. I think our good pal on Twitter, 1987 sucks. He mentioned it. He's how he put it. I think it's kind of true. And this Safe's mentioned this before. The dome. I'll read his tweet. The lights, the sound, the turf, the announcers. In the dome, it's a show. It's a complete environment and atmosphere. It's a rock show, basically. Outside of the dome, you go on the road, you got to just play lacrosse. And they look today I thought they looked very bereft of juice, just very lifeless, limp. No energy. I didn't see any energy from them today. And Duke played very well. It was certainly, and we should definitely talk about Duke. It was the best game Duke's played all season by a
long shot,
significant margin. But I don't know. I think it gets talked about a lot. I think there's something there for this team, for Cuse, and it matters because they might have to win 4 straight games on the road to win an
quarterfinals have to be. Quarterfinals are outdoors
at the moment.
Anyway, and at this rate, they're not getting a home game in the NCAA tournament. So,
and that could change. They play Carolina home next week.
They got Carolina. They got the ACC tournament. So there's still opportunities to get back up there. But I mean, the defense was better this week. And I don't really put it on them. I know they got burned on quite a few transition opportunities, but a lot of that goes to what the offense wasn't doing. A lot of unforced turnovers. I'll give Spallina credit. He had a decent game. He was trying to initiate as much as he could, but just it's the same thing I've been going on throughout this season. They go way too long on these goal droughts. They go quarters at a time. This has got to be like the 5th or 6th game where they went a full quarter with a goose egg.
It's a lot of teams have that problem, to be fair, except for Cornell.
Yeah, to be fair, we've seen that a lot lately. Yeah,
they're the one who doesn't, but a lot of teams have this. I mean, we'll talk about Notre Dame and Carolina today.
Yeah, Notre Dame Carolina's one. I mean, Michigan Ohio State was stuck at a hockey score for the longest time. But
Hopkins all season.
Yep. Denver. Look what Denver was doing against Providence today. Like, what in the world?
Denver last week. Denver scored 7.
Yeah, Georgetown last week.
Now they're down. They won 7-3. Now they're down 10-5 to Providence.
I mean, man, we're going back to the. It's been a weird year for scoring. But
we felt that early on. I remember us mentioning that, Jake. Like, I was like, I feel like out of the ordinary, like so many low-scoring games early on, and I was like, we didn't have the numbers or anything to back it up, but it's just like kind of the vibe. But I think with a little bit, but you know what I mean? Like, couldn't extrapolate. We can start looking at it now once the season is completely over. But it definitely felt like scoring was, that paltry pace at especially just some games, so many like really low-scoring games. Like it's the stuff like 8-9 games or like even this 11-7, but there was like so many felt like at least more like 4, 5, 3 goals going to the fourth quarter. It's like in the shot clock era, it's just kind of counterintuitive. You would think.
And I think too, though, again crediting Duke, they couldn't Syracuse couldn't get anything going period in that first quarter because Duke had the ball the whole time. I think they executed that game plan of limiting the possessions perfectly.
Do you play this as it was like an elimination game or as close to that without like really going like tournament mode? And not that Cuse wasn't, but right, like they would get dumped on them early on, got the head up, got ball possession of the ball like a lot more in the first. Cuse did have that little eruption. And that's kind of where I was like, maybe this is it, like kind of like almost like the Notre Dame game. Notre Dame did kind of jump out early. Cuse was able to like score, at the end of the first in Notre Dame, and then, but I think they kind of get supercharged with that crowd and playing at home. Today, just like they kind of got to, it's almost like a car going up a high hill and like just kind of sputtered back down. Like once, I think most pivotal play. I mean, you guys may change, Ryan. I'd love to hear your opinion, but like English. There were 5 down, 5-4, had a nice move. Maybe could have passed it around more, but shot saved by Duke, outlet pass, kind of transition, and then they scored. And then it was, another long transition goal, like to give them a 11. But I thought that one, because like that was what really had the momentum. If English scored that, they had a good crowd there at Costigan, so you probably get a nice like reaction. 5-5 totally changed. That's why I always say with like lacrosse, especially like those saves or like unforced errors that then result in a goal like immediately the other end are just backbreaking, and kind of felt like that juice was finally like starting to get in that second, just kind of like fizzle out, and then Duke went on like a 6-0 run, so it's just yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree. That 2-goal swing is where it all flipped.
That was the only time in the game Syracuse looked they had any juice, any energy. Was when they got 5-4. That was pretty, because they started the game badly, then they got back into a little bit there, and then Duke went back up. I mean, Duke goes from what, 5-4 to 11-4?
Yeah. They got a big run at the start of the half too. Yeah. Big run at the end of the half, big run at the start of the half.
Big run to start the game. I mean, like, yeah, that was the only time all game the Cuse had any life. Felt.
But I mean it. Yeah. But I mean that's the thing. It looked like this team turned a corner after the Notre Dame game. Last week Cornell's Cornell. That fine. They made a good effort to get coming back in the game. They just ran out of gas. That's Cornell's number one for a reason. This is where it gets concerning. This is it feeling like it was earlier in the year after the Harvard game. That I don't know. They got to turn it back on next week against UNC, because
at some point you are what you are. We're 2 weeks from Selection Sunday for all these teams.
Mm-hmm.
some point, you
because when they play like they did against Notre Dame, they look like a national title contender. The way they look now, they look like they're going to be one and done. And if they're one and done, or if all hell breaks loose on the bubble and they miss, then heads are going to roll.
Oh, really? I'll say this. There is some. We talked about the evidence of like scoring being down. Right now in adjusted offensive efficiency, 35.8% is fifth in adjusted offensive efficiency. If you go back to the last 3-4 years, that would basically get you 9th or 10th. 32% or so is 32.5 is 20th in adjusted offensive efficiency. It's Air Force. That would get you 25th, 26th or so. So it's essentially, aside from the tippy top, every team is like 5. It's like 5 spots lower than what normally would be. And then defensively, you have 2 teams sub 19% adjusted defensive efficiency in Army and Maryland. And every team in the top 10 is at 23% in adjusted defensive efficiency. Last year, there was one team better than 23% adjusted defensive efficiency. It was Notre Dame. So that's 10 teams with a better defensive efficiency. Now, granted, this is adjusted. If I go by, let's say, and that's because it's measured. Adjusted is measuring season to season, within that season. If we just go the raw totals, last year Delaware had the best raw defensive efficiency at 24.5%. This season, there are 14 teams who have a better defensive efficiency than 24.5%.
All right. I'm just like,
Actually,
our vibes are right.
Not 14. What I say Delaware was 24. No, pardon me. Yeah, it is. It's based. That's it. 24.5% is 14th in adjusted defensive efficiency. Or pardon me, raw defense, just total unadjusted, just straight up goals to possessions. 14th. Last year was first.
I felt felt like a burst of scoring and throughout this year.
No, there's how much offensive talent graduated last year?
Generational.
Wow. Exactly. How many? I mean, first team All-American attack is going to be C.J. Kirst, Sam King. I was going to say Owen Duffy, but I mean, the way he's with his injuries, who knows? Yeah, I mean, the only one of those guys who was at the level of the guys last year is Kirst. So certainly, yeah, the offense is down. Cuse, I mean, I think it's a case of they've played one game where, like, look, statistically, for a while there, they looked like, we talked about it, they looked like a national championship team. Still, they're 4th in offensive efficiency, 6th in defense, 3rd in face-off, and 6th in save percentage. That gives off national championship vibes. The thing is, how many games has their offense, defense, face-off, and goalie all played well together? 1. In this game, the problem was their offense. In the Cornell game last week, the problem was their goaltending. In the Maryland game, the problem was their offense. And in the Harvard game, the problem was their defense. As good as it looks, there's always something that is not clicking for this team in there. And that's what makes them a little different. For Duke, by comparison, we've seen the problem all year. It's been their offense. Duke's defense has been terrific for them. This is 2 straight games. They've sub-single-digit goals against Carolina last week against Cuse. Have the Michigan game they won, which was prior to this the biggest win they had. They did it with their defense. Duke's defense has always been solid for them. If you look at Notre Dame, who we'll talk about, the problem lately has been their offense. Now, their offense has exploded at times, but also at times it's had long scoring droughts. For Cuse, it's a little odder. They have all the pieces. And yeah, I think it's fair that you can say it's rare that everything is clicking, but it's what makes them different, I think, is that with most teams you can point like it's why is Cuse not again, why is Duke, who this is a significant win for them, it gets them pretty safely for now entrenched in the NCAA tournament picture. Why has Duke not been a top 10 team all year? Their offense. Why has Harvard, despite the fact they have one of the best offenses in the country, 2 or 3, not been a top 5 team? Well, it's their defense. Why is Princeton maybe not the number 1 team in the country? Their face-off play. With Cuse, why is Cuse have 4 losses? I can't point to any individual unit on the field. Yeah. I can't say
inconsistency.
I can't say that their offense is the problem because their offense has had great games this year. I can't say their defense is the problem because their defense has played very well at multiple points of the year. I can't say their faceoffs is the problem because their faceoff unit is terrific. And I can't totally say their goalie is the problem either because McCool has been by and large really good throughout most of the year. It seems like it's a different thing every week or within their losses. And I do, in some ways, I think that's concerning. Is now the upshot is, hey, you put it all together, they might be right there in that Final Four mix. But there's a lot of volatility with them. I think it's maybe better to have one obvious. I mean, it's better than maybe having one obvious weakness, but I think it also gives you just some concern in terms of when are you going to put it together over a long stretch?
Because you have 2 weeks to do it. 2 weeks and 3 games to do it.
Yeah. But
this team was going to be judged on May, and they're not putting it together at the wrong time.
Big win for Duke. Their defense has really responded well the last 3 games. The Denver and Notre Dame stretch looked really concerning, but their defense has buckled in. 3 straight games, sub 10 goals, sub 20% adjusted defensive efficiency. The offense, I think, found this was a good game for them. Offensively, in some ways, still not efficiency-wise great, 27.5%, but it was Molliver had 5 goals. McAdory had a goal and 2 assists. I think the positive thing literally was transition. They Safe mentioned, like, Duke has really not been a good, and this is kind of historically with Duke, they're not a great transition team. They're not a team that rides very hard. That has worked for them when they've just had the best pieces on the field and they can just play you 6-on-6 and they got Brennan O'Neill and all them dudes. That's not this team. This team, I think they need to find different ways to beat you. And they have all the elements to be a great transition team. They've got those shorties I'll talk about all the time, Matt Christmas, the long pole. Like, they have the elements, Duke, of being a really strong team in the middle of the field. And maybe this gives them that kind of impetus to play a little different, push a little bit more. Because that was, I think, that was the key in this game. That really opened this game up, was what they did in the middle of the field. And Cuse, just late in the game, it was, they were down 4 or 5 goals. And it was like, hey, you kind of need to get moving here. Like, you're not going to make up a 7-goal deficit 6-on-6 in the fourth quarter. You got to get some different things. But Duke played really well. And again, big win. They're now, I think, 7th in RPI, pretty safe for now in the NCAA tournament field. But you never know what situations, things like that. And of course, look, they got to beat Virginia next week, or they're actually out of the ACC tournament. So, still more to do for them, but good spot to be in.
Where's Cuse and RPI after this one? Because they at least benefit from Notre Dame.
Cuse is 8th.
Okay. So they don't get hurt too bad because of the Notre Dame win.
Yeah, they are. I mean, Notre Dame actually gives them a top 5 RPI win, which they like that. But yeah, they are 8th. Princeton, Maryland, Cornell, Penn State, Notre Dame, North Carolina, Duke, Syracuse. Those 4 AC teams are going to just blanket 5 through 8. And Ohio State 9, Harvard 10.
All right. I've had enough talking about Syracuse. So let's move on to Big Ten play, where what is a common theme of this season, boys?
Coffee is for closers.
Coffee is for closers. And boy, Michigan did not close in this one again. Tell me if you haven't heard this one before after that Duke game. But Michigan looked like they had Ohio State in the clamps. And then out of nowhere, Ohio State just scores, 5 or 6 straight unanswered?
I guess 5, right? Because they were down 3.
Yeah, they scored 5. They scored 5 unanswered. They scored on their last 5 shots.
5 minutes, right? 5:45 or something. That's when the Michigan threw the ball away.
Ohio State had 5 goals with 5.5 minutes left, and they scored 5 goals in the next on 5 straight shots.
On 5 shots, 100% efficiency.
It was like that Cornell-Penn State game, but there was no X factor of having them banned down, non-releasable. It was just a collapse. It was just kind of really weird to see because how well Michigan was able to kind of just retake control of the game from Ohio State. Ohio State was kind of humming for a bit, and then Michigan was just went on a roll, and I was 3 goals for 5 minutes left. It's I just didn't think there was going to be any time to even take it into overtime, let alone for them to win by 2. And I know there's always the controversy about the late goal when you're up 1, but I think it is the Crosse Commission long-running policy that more goals is better at all times. So,
I seriously, I could not deal with it. The commentators, or Pelkey, I think it was, with Ohio State down 1 with 3 minutes left, and this is a really tough spot to be in. You don't want to go too fast because you don't want the other team to get a chance to score. I'm like, what if you
don't need a 3 here, Jake? You don't need a 3 here.
What if instead of worrying about the other team scoring, you worry about scoring? You are losing the game.
More to get the tie, not to prevent them to go up 2 when you have the ball.
I think when you're down a goal, the message should be And to be Ohio, that's what Ohio State did. They just went and played offense, and they won the game.
So that does give Ohio
Notre Dame. Reminiscent a little bit of the Notre Dame win. Taking it at the end.
Ohio State has been, in some of these ways, a fourth quarter team. Big with this one, the Notre Dame win. In the Penn State game, they put it away. So Michigan, on the flip side, has not been a fourth quarter team. The Duke game, they were down 7-5, they led 7-5, and then gave up 2 late goals in the OT winner. All same exact thing. McAdory, just speed dodge behind the cage. The Penn State game, remember, they led, I think, by 1 going into the fourth quarter. And Penn State outscored them 5-1 in the fourth. And now this one, a 3-goal lead with 5 minutes left. And that's the crazy thing, is nothing happened here that was really materially changed the game, except Ohio State just started scoring. Ohio State wasn't hitting shots, and then they hit shots, and it's brutal for Michigan. That's for now. We'll see the next 2 weeks. We know their success in the Big Ten tournament, but for now, that is the story of Michigan's season.
And Ohio State wins the Big Ten regular season title, so they'll be your 1 seed in the Big Ten tournament. And yes, we are well aware of what Michigan could do in the Big Ten tournament. We've seen the past 2 years, but that's the difference between them being bubble in and bubble out, has been these late game situations.
Oh yeah, but top 8 RPI, they had that Duke win, and then this one here, Penn State, they would have held on. Yeah, this would have been. Even it was still pretty good season for them. We've always been talking about commendable for them to win back AQs, but to show that sustained success over the course of the Big Ten season this year, I thought that was a big step up for them. Giving this up, so late, kind of a bittersweet, ending for them, obviously. But got another win against Maryland this year. They beat Hopkins. They joking around with Jake. They swept the state of Maryland, and we're close to like clinching a Big Ten regular season crown. So definitely something to be proud of. But yeah, they kind of just let this slip through their fingers. So just kind of surprising fashion.
But as you said, yeah, it's good to see Michigan, sustain that winning culture, but to take that next step.
I don't. That's treating them like a little kid at the playground. Like Michigan. Look, Michigan. I see how
it reminds you too much of Rutgers in the late 2010s. I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, and I saw the way they celebrated after they won the Maryland game. And they celebrated like they'd won the Big Ten championship. It's like, how many times have you beaten that team in a row now? When does the expectation become? When does the standard change? When does the expectation become? We're here. We're not just the underdog every now and again. You got past that. Man, they went 7-6. They're 7-6. They were picked to finish fourth in the Big Ten, and they finished fourth in the Big Ten. If you win these two games, if you win the Duke game and you win the Ohio State game, you're probably in the NCAA tournament.
Now you got to rattle 3 in a row like you did the past 2 years.
Yeah, a team that has won. Has been to back-to-back NCAA tournaments. I don't know. I don't believe in. Oh well, you beat Maryland again, so great season. Why is Maryland the defining game of your season? It's the defining game of Maryland's season is not playing Michigan. The defining game, I'll say right now, even Ohio State, the defining game of Ohio State's season is not playing Maryland or Michigan. For Ohio State, I mean, they want to, this is the team that's
NCAA tournament game they're playing.
They want to win that. And look, Michigan had won 4 in a row against Ohio State, and they had obviously been to NCAA tournaments and won NCAA tournament games more recently. But yeah, no, I don't. If they don't make the tournament again, they could easily make the tournament. I absolutely can see them win the Big Ten again, but. No, I don't think that. Oh well, they sustained. If you win the Big Ten tournament, yes, you've sustained your success. If you don't, you went backwards. Like that's to me, you want to be a big time program, you got to sustain the success. And just beating Maryland again is not, that shouldn't be successful. Like, that's not, you got to be looking for bigger and better things. And at least to this point this year, they haven't done that. They haven't closed out these big games.
Speaking of not closing out, UNC nearly shut out Notre Dame in the first half today. 4-1 at the half. Then Notre Dame just out of nowhere explodes and ends up doubling up UNC 12-6. So North Carolina really could have had a stranglehold on the 1 seed in the ACC with Syracuse's loss today. Instead, Notre Dame with a big victory that really helps solidify their NCAA case, because if they didn't win this, looking for a while like they were going to be in very shaky ground, but they come back and really just take that game away from UNC and take the ball and run away with it and come out 12-6 victors over the Tar Heels in Chapel Hill.
It's hard to watch this one. I was just kind of following along. It's just around noon, but yeah, I was just so surprised at just like the juxtaposition from how well Carolina was doing in the first half, Brendan. Like just an absolute like explosion by Notre Dame to, I guess, essentially 11-2 run in the second half. Like, it's kind of almost the opposite of what happened against the Syracuse game. Notre Dame got up early, and then Cuse just started going on their run, and it just seemed like Notre Dame couldn't do anything for a good amount of time. It was a little bit felt closer than this one. The second half, that the way Notre Dame just kind of dominated North Carolina. But a bit of a surprise. Carolina's defense just kind of turned into a sieve in the second half. But like I said, didn't catch too much of this live. But definitely was just following along online and just couldn't really believe what I was seeing. Notre Dame just kept pouring it on in the third and fourth quarter.
Yeah, as Mark was saying, Notre Dame realized the season was on the line, woke up all of a sudden. I think part of it, too, though, is that UNC wasn't able to add on to that lead in the first half. They were getting, they just weren't putting the ball on cage that second quarter when they really had an opportunity to put the stranglehold on, and that kept the door open a crack, and Notre Dame slammed it wide open.
I felt the game turning in the second quarter. I tweeted out, Notre Dame won the second quarter 1-0. It was, it wasn't a lot, but Notre Dame was getting good looks in the second quarter. They weren't quite hitting them, but they were getting more good looks. And Carolina's offense, basically after they went up 4-0, that was it. Like they just didn't get anything going for the rest.
Scoreless droughts, baby.
Yeah, and their second and third goals, they went right at Notre Dame shorties and dusted them. The one led to a goal by, I think, Brevin Wilson, and the second one, they got a slide, drew a slide, and then got to finish off. But yeah, first quarter of this game, North Carolina was 4 of 10 on offense. Had 16 shots, so that sense wasn't great. Second quarter, 9 possessions and only 6 shots on 9 possessions. We're not getting a lot of consistent traffic towards the goal, and that's when I felt like Notre Dame is kind of slowly inching their way back into this game, but inching their way back into it nonetheless. And then third quarter, they did it, again, kind of slowly inch their way back into it. Got to 6-5, and after that, that was it. All she wrote. Notre Dame scored 11 goals on 20 possessions in the second half. Carolina, this situation with Duffy and Petramala, I think, is kind of going to, for as long as it lasts, I think it's going to be the story of their season. Because last week was the first we heard about these potential injuries to them. And 8 goals last week against Duke. Granted, Duke's a very good defense, but they had to win that game with their own defense. Their offense had chances to kind of put that away, and it was the Carolina defense that shut the door. Today, Duffy had 1 assist. After that, really couldn't get anything going on Light at all, and that's always going to be a tough matchup. But Petro had 1 goal on 8 shots. No one on Carolina had more than 1 goal, and only 1 player had multiple points. And then the Duke game last week, they pulled it out 8-7. Suchek had 2 and 1. Petro had 2 goals and an assist. We've been talking about this for them for kind of basically the entire season. Can they get scoring depth behind Petro and Duffy? And they have guys contributing. They're playing a lot of guys, and they got a lot of young guys that are playing. But you need someone to score a hat trick. You need someone to put up a 4 or 5 point game. When those guys are going, who has the big game? I always remember the game they played against Rutgers in the quarterfinals. It was Lance Tillman. He kind of came out of nowhere and had a hat trick. It can't just completely be, especially if they're hurt, it can't just be, we'll chip in with a goal here or there. That's what you need when these guys are producing to kind of put it over the top. If they're not producing, you need someone to kind of step up and have a huge game. And they got some guys percolating, but not happening. And that defense is, all due respect to that defense, I think that defense is doing everything it can. That's not the strength of this team. They're a solid defense. They've played solid at a lot of points of the season, but if they're going to win a national championship, it's going to have to be through the offense and through the faceoffs with Wambach. And then Gio still kind of gives me just don't love his mechanics. I mentioned that wide base, he just can't explode to the ball. So yeah, kind of concerns me a little bit there. Big one for Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, much needed one for them too. They got Penn next week, but they needed a big RPI win, and they got it here with UNC. So
the scoring droughts for them are something. It was 30 minutes against Cuse, 30 minutes against Cuse, 15 minutes against Virginia, and then they didn't score a goal in this one until
like 28 minutes in, I think.
Yeah, it was. I mean, at least I think well over 20, 25. That is definitely something to look for. For them, these kind of these long. I think Ryan, you had it at the beginning of the year. They were mentioned on the broadcast. It's going to have to be the midfield for them. If you're looking at that midfield right now, you want to look at Faison, you want to look at Jeffrey, the freshman. Both of those guys not having a fall ball, not having really a spring practice whatsoever. Jeffrey did have a nice goal in this game. Faison, though, he's just – he looks tired. Looks like a guy.
Yeah, he had a good goal, but even still, he has not been the same weapon he was last year.
No, but not at all. And so I think that's going to be a big story as well. Can those guys get going at some point late in the year here? Because
again, 3 extra college football games this year with the playoff. Usually you're playing 13 games. Notre Dame football played 16.
And no practice, really. And they kind of remember Corrigan wanted to really bring Faison along more slowly. And it felt like he kind of had to rush into it a little bit. With that Georgetown game was really close, the Maryland game, Ohio State, that stretch there, I felt like they had to bring him back maybe a bit more earlier than he'd like. And
they said that. They wanted to give him 2 weeks off and only ended up taking 1. Or something like that. Yeah, they definitely sped up the transition from football. And no team season yet. It pretty much was 1 week before the first game of the lacrosse season. So, Notre Dame football ended 1 week before the lacrosse season started. So yeah, no real time to loss.
Yeah.
Marcos wanted to note: is that the first time you ever poked both teams in the same game, Jake?
I'm not sure, but yeah, this Notre Dame looked rough here early, and then they didn't.
They didn't, and then UNC started looking really rough, and State looking really rough.
Lacrosse's game runs. Yeah, this game was 4-0 North Carolina. They finished 12-6.
12-6. Fun one up in Boston. Harvard for 3 quarters was kind of going within shouting range of the Big Red. But Cornell pours it on in that fourth quarter. Actually, I think the back end of the third quarter onward. And Big Red come away with an 8-goal victory over Harvard. And CJ Kurse now tied for the all-time NCAA men's D1 goals record. I doubt he'll have any problem breaking it next week against Dartmouth. He just needs 1, and the way he's been putting goals on net, that probably be done in the first couple of minutes. I wonder if they'll have Gary Bettman and a whole bunch of dignitaries coming onto the field to congratulate him like they did with Ovechkin. But in all seriousness, Cornell continuing to just blow away teams with their offense, and 20 goals against a top 10 Harvard team is just another way that machine is rolling through Ivy League play. So Big Red with another big victory.
On the road,
yeah, packed house, 4,000 there.
All-time record
for Harvard, yeah. They went all out. I think it's a Harvard Day or something like that, Crimson Day. Yeah, you're right, Ryan. Harvard put up a fight. Cornell can they're just relentless in how they're able to just offensively produce. I am wondering, like, if they are able to just win out the rest of the way, is there a case for them to be the number one team for
Definitely.
Selection Sunday?
Yeah.
And it should be like it was a remarkable season. I mean, besides that one kind of fluky loss, you're essentially looking at a third undefeated regular season, for a team that, potentially has like a national championship run in them. So I just wish, what would have happened if they were able to, pull off that Penn State game, where they could be kind of like in history. If they you put them up there with Maryland's undefeated season, regular season, or Notre Dame's nearly undefeated regular season. But it's definitely really impressive year by the Big Red, and really coming on strong now with some big time wins. Now with the Harvard win, nearly gives you two top 5 wins. Obviously with the Princeton win from earlier this season. So they're going to be well positioned to have a very nice seed come Selection Sunday. Just provided no catastrophe happens against Dartmouth, and then it was in the first round. But yeah, really, really good, really remarkable season by the Big Red.
It will be interesting to see. They've lost that first game in the Ivy League tournament 2 straight years, including
we were discussing that last night. Number 1 seed in the Ivy League tournament, not exactly a winning formula.
Actually,
all the way back to 2020.
Especially when they beat Princeton, they don't do well in the Ivy tournament.
They've lost
in 2019.
3 straight years. They've lost in the first round. They've lost in the first round of the Ivy tournament 3 straight years.
Yeah.
22 they lost to Penn. 23 they lost to Yale or Princeton. I can't quite recall exactly. It was Yale. I remember that. Yeah. Yale hung like 20 on them. And it wound up being a bit of an omen for their defense.
I feel like Yale was a first rounder, also 22, because they lost to Yale in 2019, right? So I don't have my computer here.
It was I don't remember who it was.
Because that was Yale Penn in the Ivy Championship.
It was like Penn in 3 years in a row, and then Yale. There was something with,
either way, they've lost.
We did it on that pod together.
They've lost in the first round of the Ivy tournament 4 straight times, and that'll be interesting. And they're going to play a Yale team that's playing for their season next on that first game. So that'll be interesting to see. I tweeted out, this offense is they're like Skynet. And someone replied, does that make CJ Kurtz the Terminator? It might. When that offense works, man, they just seem to they read each other perfectly. It's the fluidity, the spacing, the ball movement. So many goals today that were unassisted. And then there were also some goals. I think this was a game for Harvard where, how Harvard wants to play defensively, because we saw with so many years of Byrne at Notre Dame. They don't care about the matchup. They're not going to overextend, help. They're fine with whatever it winds up being. But man, you cannot have a shorty on CJ Kurtz at any point of the game, ever. You have to support that immediately. And there were multiple times where a shorty wound up on Kurtz, and Cornell Kurtz did what he did. He just turned into Swiss cheese. I thought Cornell's defense, for them, what they did against Cuse was really effective. Was they forced Cuse to attack them from behind the cage. They made the dodges come from kind of GLE behind the net, and it's easier to support your shorties in there. You can kind of bring guys, adjacent slides quicker, multiple different options for an adjacent slide. When teams stretch them out and attack the full field, they have a lot more trouble supporting their shorties. And that's what Harvard did really well for 3 quarters. Eventually, Cornell was able to buckle down. And again, they have I don't know if their A game is the best. It very well might be. It might. I think it's probably them or Maryland in terms of who has the best fastball. But they have an extra 2 to 3 miles per hour of zip on it that other teams just don't have. Harvard got into this thing a couple times at 2-3 goals, or even down to 1, I think, early in the second half. And every time Cornell just bang, bang, bang. It's back to 3 or 4. They have a different gear, at least in spurts, than other teams have. It's just, and you really saw it today.
Mark was also pointing out, don't assume Yale's the 4 yet because they could upset Princeton, force a 3-way tie, and was looking a little dicey for the Tigers for most of the game today at Franklin Field. Penn was actually up had a 3-goal lead at halftime, but Princeton, third quarter onward though, Princeton got themselves back in the game and pulled away there at the end. But Princeton sometimes gets off to these slow starts, and the way Yale's been playing as of late, you don't want to get in too big of a hole. So that is something to kind of keep in mind for next week. It is in Tiger Town, but
Princeton. What we've been talking about, Princeton just hadn't been in a big game in a while, and that's what it feels like. That I think they kind of maybe know they don't need to play their best, or they don't maybe need their A game.
Yeah, we discussed this a little bit last night. Yeah,
and so they just haven't really brought the full energy level, and it's not a bad thing. You need to pace yourself throughout a season, and winning with your B game is just as much a matter of it's just as important, to winning a national championship as can you win. So again, they've played Lehigh, they played Penn now. They haven't played a top 20 team, I think, since that the Harvard Dartmouth, yeah.
Dartmouth, yeah.
They that Dartmouth quickly, turned into not a top 20 team. Though shout out Dartmouth, 2 Ivy League wins for the first time since 2010, and a winning season for the first time since 2006. So great season for Dartmouth. But yeah, I think the question is, can Princeton bring that energy level back up next week? Because Yale's going to bring the energy. Yale's been playing better. They've still got some weaknesses for sure, defensively and things like that. And their face-off guy, Mac Rodriguez, is probably done for the year. So, but can Princeton bring that energy level back up for the Yale game and then the Ivy League tournament? Because either way, they're going to be in that 2-3 game. So, or I guess they could be. Maybe if they fall to the 4th, they're going to have a tough semifinal game in the Ivy League tournament. So that's in question. Can they bring the energy back up?
All right. Also, while we're on the clock, before we get to around the scoreboard, the NCAA selection committee dropped their top 10, and it garnered a lot of reaction in the lacrosse world. Do we have a screen grab of it?
I can read it off.
Okay.
Felt like it kind of mirrored our top 10, right? At least the first 4. I think we had Maryland. Princeton was number 2 in our this week, right?
It was Cornell 1, Maryland 2. Again, this is before the results of today, though I don't know if it's before the results of last night. Cornell 1, Maryland 2, Princeton 3, Penn State 4, Carolina 5, Harvard 6, Army 7, Ohio State 8, Syracuse 9, Notre Dame 10.
Is that ours from last week? Right? This what it feels like.
Kinda, yeah. It's pretty
4
similar.
feels like really similar. Maybe we had Princeton, but maybe you and I were the only ones that had Maryland number 2 last week.
Yeah. This is not.
I didn't really get to outrage.
It didn't feel that egregious.
It felt like this was normal. Maybe
there's no argument to have Cornell ahead of Maryland right now. Like, there just isn't. Their resumes are Maryland's ahead in RPI, ahead in strength and schedule. They have 3 top 5 wins to Cornell's 1. They both have 2. Maryland has 5 top 10 wins. Cornell has 3. Maryland has 8 top 20 wins. Cornell has 5. there's not an argument for Cornell to be ahead of Maryland. It's just not a defense for it. Now, other than that, I think it's largely fine. There's some different things you pull with. I'd probably have Ohio State higher, but I know that there's some people who have had Ohio State in the unseeded even. So, the Ohio State thing, just because of where they were in RPI, is kind of the main point of, I think, differentiation for people. But other than that, yeah, I think, honestly, I just don't think there's really I just don't think they actually start paying attention to this stuff until the last week of the season. I think they do these releases because I guess they have to, or they feel like they're obligated to. And I think that they just kind of remember Jacksonville was 10th in one of them a couple years ago, and then they wound up nowhere to be found by the end of the year. I just think that I don't know. I don't think that they really put much thought into it until, again, it really matters. So I wouldn't really pay attention to it. I think you'll see stuff that's a lot different to how it actually turns out by the end.
I think it was the 2 losses that, if I was on if we were a fly on the wall, I think maybe why they put Maryland number 2. Right? I mean, it's got to be that. There's nothing else.
Yeah, the Rutgers, if they're going by the Rutgers loss.
The Rutgers kind of a middle.
The Rutgers loss isn't a bad loss, so that doesn't matter. It could be.
I'm saying, whereas compared to Cornell's loss at number 3 RPI, number 4 ranked Penn State. I guess. I think that's got to be going.
I'm guessing what the rationale was.
They beat the same team. They both beat Princeton. They both beat Syracuse. They both. Maryland did play Harvard, but the next in Cornell's column. But yeah, the top 10 wins are there for Maryland. It's just the 2 losses. I think.
I just think they didn't really look at it, and they just went with, well, Cornell's number 1 in the media poll. So
who's got less losses? Well,
I think that's what they did.
All right, we actually kind of did a little bit early for the week, so let's go around the scoreboard. Hofstra beats Hampton 27-4. Jacksonville 18-5 over Bellarmine. Air Force 12-8 over Mercer. Army and Bucknell was interesting at the beginning. Bucknell was giving Army a run for their money in the first quarter, in the first half, but Army pulls away with a 20-11 victory there. So Army's still on the inside track for the 1 seed in the Patriot League tournament. Still haven't clinched it yet, but they still are winning in for the 1 seed in the Patriot League. Drexel fights nice back and forth affair in Philly against Stony Brook. They come out on top 15-14 over the Seawolves. Towson now in the driver's seat in the CAA because they are now the number 1 seed in the CAA tournament. They clinched hosting duties, I believe, as well. 14-9 victory over Fairfield. So the Tigers' hot stretch carries on. They are now on a 7-game winning streak.
Jake, are we back?
Since their loss to Virginia.
Feels like it, yeah. Towson did a really good job. They switched to a zone in the middle of this game. And that really kind of slowed the pace down. Since they moved Weishar to attack kind of midway through the year, when he was in midfield, when he wasn't getting on the field all the time, and it was a little and their offense, teams were just taking him away, and when teams took him away, they didn't really have a lot of other options. That's improved things. So I think it's certainly within the CAA, they feel pretty in a good spot. I mean, they're going to host the conference tournament, which is big. And I like the way that they've been playing the last couple weeks during this stretch. I don't know whether it means they'll have something if they get in the tournament the way we might have thought, considering we all have them in the top 20 this season. But the only team that's really – the Delaware game was the closest game they had. And Delaware Thunderdome bid Delaware adieu in pretty vintage style, an upset by Monmouth to knock Delaware out of the CAA tournament for the last time.
Yeah, 12-11 double OT. Because remember Delaware. Did Delaware find a conference for lacrosse? I forget.
They're in the A10.
They're doing the A10, yeah, because they're going to be moving up to FBS football. So, yeah, so a big upset there. Monmouth in Long Branch pull off the 12-11 double OT upset. And again, yeah, Delaware is knocked out of the CAA tournament. Which is pretty surprising in its own right, but the Thunderdome knows no mercy. In the Big East, Georgetown puts up well more than 3 goals last week. They instead scored 21 against St. John's, beat them 21-8 in Queens. Big upset in the A10. High Point, 11-9 victory over St. Joe's.
Definitely. Really special, but the wrong way.
So I'm just so that makes a 3-way tie in that second place spot. We'll get to Richmond UMass in a little bit, but yeah, High Point puts themselves into the A10 tournament in a 3-way tie for that spot.
Shout out Richmond, man. I mean, they just dump trucked UMass.
Yeah, Richmond 14-5 win over UMass. Dominant victory to take a stranglehold over the top of the A10 right now. Obviously, they got a big one next week against St. Joe's. They beat them. They're undisputed A10 regular season champs. If they lose, that creates a whole quagmire for who gets the 1 seed, because High Point's got St. Bonaventure, and I believe that means UMass has Hobart, so you could have a 4-way tie in the A10 if St. Joe's wins next week. But for the time being, Richmond controls their own destiny, and the way they looked against UMass today was very good.
St. Joe's has 2 losses, right?
No, St. Joe's is at they do have 2 losses. Sorry,
Richmond won the league in the regular season. Richmond got the 1 seed. Everybody else has 2 losses.
Yeah, everyone else has 2 losses, except High Point's not 3-0. Yeah, High Point's actually the 2 seed right now.
Could they beat UMass and St. Joe's?
They did.
Yeah, so then High Point has the edge right now at the moment. Everybody's got the 2, 3, 4 have 2 losses. But Richmond, I said last night I thought they'd lose one of these 2 games, but they've just really, I mean, we'll see. Remember last year they kind of similarly dominated A10 play, and then St. Joe's tripped them up. And of course this A10 tournament will be at Sweeney Field this year. Just that's where it's at in the rotation. So that'll be a tough. If they have to go through St. Joe's, that'll definitely be tough. But they look really strong. I mean, they haven't lost a game. They got 2 losses by a goal since February 8th, and other than that, they have 1-goal wins at Lehigh, at Georgetown. At home, they've won by 9, 5, 17, 6, 20. Beat Virginia, and they beat Virginia as well on the road. So, yeah, man, they're playing great lacrosse.
Mm-hmm. Manhattan in the Bronx Westchester Derby. Manhattan wins 17-10 over Iona. That's going to be my Derby name for now, is the Bronx Westchester Derby. A little bit up the road, Marist beats Merrimack 15-7. Fun one in Big East play. Villanova 14-13 over Marquette. Marquette did have Villanova on the ropes, I think, there in the 4th quarter, but the Wildcats sneak out the victory in the suburbs of Philly. Sacred Heart with a 13-10 win over Mount St. Mary's. Utah 17-3 over Queens. Bryant with a 13-12 win over Binghamton. Let me pull up the AE stats. So Bryant is now at 4-1. So that means they are tied with UMBC, if I'm not mistaken, at the top there. UMBC themselves beat NJIT 17-9. As we alluded to a little bit earlier, Dartmouth, shout out to them. Second Ivy League win, 13-9 victory over Brown today. Siena beats Canisius 16-10. Colgate with a 15-3 victory over Holy Cross. We'll make out the Patriot League mess in a moment. Virginia non-con play beat Lafayette 13-8. Hobart with a... You guys ready for this score? I know we've been talking about defensive score lines and everything. So hold on to your seat for this one. You ready for this one? So Hobart doubled up St. Bonaventure. Final score, 26-13 Statesman. So lots of goals flying in Geneva today. LIU beats Lemoyne 13-6. So that means, I believe that meant that Bobby Moe clinches the 1 seed in...
No, Bobby Moe and...
Or no, Lemoyne's at least the 2... Yeah, because they got to play each other.
Bobby Moe and Lemoyne play next week. So whatever that game... I mean, it doesn't matter where Lemoyne finishes, really, because...
Yeah, because they're not eligible for the NCAA tournament.
They're not eligible to make the
but they are eligible to make the conference tournament.
It's like that scene.
Mercyhurst is not.
Like, look, but don't touch. Yeah, you can go visit tournaments, but you can't win. Even if you win, you're not getting anything.
You got the trophy, but not the benefits of the trophy.
But they're going to give them the trophy? That's amazing.
Yeah, you see it all the time with these teams in transition during March Madness. It's like they win, they have the whole celebration, but they can't do the, the slap the sticker on the bracket thing for the. They got to go to. They have to do that in the prior night semifinal, where the team that plays them gets the second game, and then they get to smash their name on the ticket punch to the NCAA tournament a day early because the other team's ineligible. So it might be some hilarious scenes there in the NEC tournament. In the Patriot League, BU beats Lehigh 12-7. So BU's chances for the 1 seed in the PL are still alive. VMI with a 13-12 victory over Wagner. Vermont 17-9 over UMass Lowell. Robert Morris 14-4 over Cleveland State. So Denver, week after they beat Georgetown in DC. At home, they lose 10-6 to Providence.
Bobby B.
And Providence was shutting them down. I think Denver went the whole first half with a goose egg. Or thereabouts as well. So another
one goal. It was 8-1 at one point. This is the first time Providence has ever beaten Denver in school history. And the margin of victories were lopsided. It was the average Denver margin of victory was like 7.5 goals per game. Across 16 meetings. This is the 17th time they played. So huge win for Providence. That gets them to 2-2 in Big East play, and they beat Marquette. So Providence needs to beat St. John's next week, and they will be in the Big East tournament. Then Villanova and Georgetown next week is for the top seed in the Big East tournament. The Big East also, I'm pretty sure, does a rotation. So this year will be at let me pull that real quick. The Big East tournament this year is in – last year was at Nova. Where is it this year? It doesn't say. I don't know. We'll have to find out. But I don't think it's – they've done a rotation, so I don't think it'll be hosted by whoever the 1 seed is. But Villanova and Georgetown will be for the 1 seed next week, because Denver's got Providence actually could wind up as the – no, I mean Providence wins next week. They're not only in, but they'll be the 3 seed. Which I don't think it really matters. The Big East, all these teams are kind of in the same spot this year. I mean, Georgetown's obviously got the history of and the pedigree in the Big East tournament, and Denver's Denver, but honestly, I don't really think there's much of any difference between these 4 teams. So, but just kind of some seeding implications.
And 2 Saturday night games going on. Detroit Mercy's currently up 5-4 over Mercyhurst. Yale up 7-6 on Albany. Both games in the second quarter right now.
Nice tight power hour.
Indeed.
Yes. All right. I didn't necessarily like the result of the Syracuse game, but I do like lacrosse. So, what should our viewers do?
You should smash that like button.
Smash it like these wrestlers at WrestleMania tonight, right, Jake?
God,
you're gonna be smashing one another.
That's not your best work. It's like those headlines that are like, AEW Dynamite delivers a pile driver to, with strong ratings or whatever. Every time wrestling's in the news, they have one template headline. Put in the promotion, put in a move, and then the actual thing you're talking about. They deliver a takedown.
Poor ratings force a submission. Well, you do have to subscribe to Peacock to watch Well, you have to subscribe to Peacock to watch WrestleMania. So, what should our viewers also do to give us some support?
They should subscribe to the Crosse Commission on YouTube.
Just smash the subscribe button.
Smash the subscribe button.
Turn on the notifications.
Yeah, put a pinfall.
Spear that notification button.
Put a pinfall on the subscribe button.
DDT the notifications.
Smack that chair into the upright position next Saturday when we do another round of the Power Hour for the last.
Stun that like button.
If you deliver a chair, if you hit a chair shot on that notification button, it'll make a similar sound to your chair. Your chair delivers like there's a real thud to that. You'll get something akin to that. If you turn on notifications, it'll inform you of when we're going live.
Yes.
So that's what you should do.
All that being said, we'll be back next week. Last Saturday of the regular season already.
Yep. Everything all at once at the same time, whatever that book's called. So
was that a movie that won a bunch of Oscars because
everything all at once at the same something like that. But yeah, that's what it feels like the last 2 weeks.
It had Michelle Yeoh, the guy who was in Indiana Jones.
Shia LaBeouf.
No, the original.
No, don't think. I mean, I didn't see the movie, so I'd have to double check. He could
get
be
David
right.
Byrne you get David Byrne doing the theme song and everything.
My gut
we got David Byrne.
My gut feeling is it was not Shia LaBeouf. Probably not.
And midweek, of course, Jake and Safe will be back at it with the Crosse Commission podcast. So subscribe and listen wherever you get your podcasts. And other than that, hope everyone has a good either Easter weekend, wrap up of Passover, or just a great weekend in general. And we'll catch you on the next side. And as always, weather was hot today, so stay hydrated.
Becky Lynch for president. Enjoy this outro.
See ya.
Ford, Honda, Chevy, Beamers, and minivans, over 600 cars, trucks, SUVs. Are you listening, man? Let Eastern Motors put you in a car today. Let Eastern Motors finance it all the way.